And we're going to be talking about advancing health innovation in Arizona. And we have a very special guest with us, Russ Yelton, who, among other things, serves as a member of the Board of Trustees for AZAdvances. And you're going to hear about AZAdvances a little bit later in the program. Russ, would you just introduce yourself to everyone and just give them a quick, who's Russ Yelton?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Excited to have you all here and discuss this topic. As Joan said, I'm on the trustees of AZAdvances, also current past chair of AZBio, do a fair amount of work with the Flynn Foundation and others. And I think over the time that I've been in Arizona since 2009, watching the growth of this sector, all of the companies and programs and people coming together. It's just been really fantastic. And we're excited about AZAdvances. We believe this is another piece of the puzzle as we all come together, and look forward to having this discussion with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, Russ. Okay, so now I am going to share my screen to give you all just a kind of a view of where we are and where we're going and how we're going to get there. So as we look at Arizona, right? AZBio is celebrating its 20th anniversary. That's 20 years of our members making an impact in Arizona. The exciting thing is that it's not just about looking backwards, it's about looking forwards. And so the AZBio Board of Directors over the last several months have been working on their strategic plan. And that strategic plan is focused on doubling the size of our life science industry by 2033. Now, to put that in perspective, in 2021, which is the last year that we have data for, Arizona had generated $38.54 billion from its life science sector in 1 year. You hear lots of times where they say this program generated that kind of impact in 10 years or in 5 years. This is 1 year. And that's a lot. But what's very important to keep in mind is we are ranked for economic impact nationally at number 20. So if we're going to double the size of our industry, that should put us very close to or inside the top 10. And when we do that, that's $77 billion in economic impact in 1 year. That is why, as we talk about some of the programs we're going to be sharing with you today, these programs are so important because we will not achieve these kind of goals if we don't all work together. And for those of you that are going to be with us at Arizona Bioscience Week, at many of the events, you'll be able to get a pin, which is the same pin that the AZBio Board of Directors wears and I wear. And it's an Arizona pin because together we're going to be making Arizona even greater than it is today. All right, so what did those numbers look like? So I told you that, Arizona in 2021 had generated $38.54 billion. And look at how much we grew in just 3 years, including a pandemic. We added over $4 billion in economic impact year on year in just 3 years. So when we talk about looking out now a decade, we have the ability to hit those numbers if we all work together. When you look at the growth in companies, that's what they call firms, okay? You look at the growth in companies, again, we added over 700 jobs or 700 companies. Employment, right? Look at that. Again, almost 7,000 jobs in just 3 years. So those are really, really impressive numbers. And that is why you hear that Arizona is home to one of the fastest growing and emerging bioscience states in the country. The challenge is, as we'll see in the next slide, everybody else is growing too. Now, as you look at the inputs, the things that help drive that growth, it's venture capital. So you can see how we grew from the 2016 to 2019 and 18 to 21. Again, a very respectable jump. Okay. NIH funding continues to improve. Academic R&D, that was a big jump. Okay, that's the combination of not just NIH, but other academic funding that's going into programs. So as you can see, we're making progress. And we'll have new economic impact numbers, hopefully at the end of next year. It usually runs on a cycle like that. But these are the numbers that we're looking at as our baseline. Again, that's a lot of jobs, a lot of companies, a lot of funding, and a lot of growth. But here's the hard part. Okay, remember I said everybody else is growing too? So here what you see is what our 2021 numbers ranked among the 50 organizations or the 50 states and 2 territories that get included. And the 2 territories are Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. So when you have those 52 states and other, right, this is where we rank. So as I said before, we are 20th in economic impact. We're number 14 in number of companies, and that's cool because we're number 14 by population. So at least right now we're tracking on our population numbers, but we're number 22 when it comes to jobs. So one of the things that the AZBio Board of Directors started looking at all the way back in 2019 was how do we fix that? How do we get our employment numbers growing at the scale that our company numbers are growing at? And it's those inputs on the right side of your screen that make the difference, right? It is the amount of venture capital, the amount of investment that's going into these small companies. It's the funding coming from academic and NIH that is creating new ideas within our universities that can be spun out into companies. So if we're ranked 25 out of 52 on the inputs, it makes it a lot harder to grow those employment numbers. And that is why some of the new programs that we're going to be talking about today were created. So I also wanted to just give you a feel because many of you have heard me talk about the amount of money that has been invested in the life sciences or biosciences, as lots of people like to call it, in Arizona over the last 2 decades. And that number is now up to over $27 billion. But the question is, where did that money come from and where did it go? So what you can see on this chart is where that money comes from and where that investment got focused. So what we've seen with philanthropy, there's been over $3.6 billion from local philanthropists and national philanthropists over the last 20 years. And that money has gone predominantly into discovery. Think at places like TGen, the universities, or delivery at the hospitals, building up our hospital resources to support our growing population. Discovery at the federal level, that's where you see money coming in from NIH, NSF, all of EDA, all of the different federal programs. And the majority of that money, over $5 billion, again, went into discovery, went into trying to figure out what if this might work? What if this might change? And so those discovery questions are essential to the future of our life science industry, and we are appropriately investing at that level. We also, here in the state of Arizona, are investing almost as much as is being invested by our federal partners. Over $4 billion has been invested over the last 20 years. And part of that is TRIF, the Technology Research Initiative Fund that was created in 2000 under Prop 301. And that is now an essential engine that has contributed over $1.6 billion into research and discovery at Arizona's 3 state universities, ASU, the University of Arizona, and NAU. So those engines are helping to create the companies that you saw. Remember, we're ranked number 14 for number of firms. So that discovery is popping out these little companies, and that's amazing. Big companies and industry are doing their part. The largest investor over the last 20 years was organizations. It was companies like BMS and Medtronic and Becton Dickinson and Roche down in Tucson and others that have built facilities, have expanded their footprint here in Arizona and are continuing to be, great partners. And, it's kind of interesting how those little companies can attract those big partners. So a great example is AZAdvances. So AZAdvances acquired 2 small Arizona companies, combined that with licenses of new technologies that they entered into with TGen, and are now expanding their operations here in Arizona. So I went and looked at some numbers, and it's nice to see that AZAdvances over the 3-year period was the #1 net new job creator in Arizona for the life sciences. So those 2 little companies, combined with research that came out of TGen and discoveries at TGen, were put together. And that is what is helping to grow a new global partner here in Arizona. Now, the other thing that's really important is how that will impact patients, because patients are the reason we do what we do. And in the case of that part of AZAdvances, they are developing new tests to allow patients to be screened for multiple cancers at one time. So it used to be that almost all of our cancer tests were single tests. We tested for colon cancer. We tested, which AZAdvances is famous for, but we test for colon cancer. We test for breast cancer. We test for lung cancer with spiral CTs. There's all different ways that we test for individual cancers. But the goal of multivariant genomic testing is to be able to test for lots of cancers at one time, so that then our physicians know where to look. Because there are a lot of cancers that hide inside us and they don't become symptomatic until it's too late. And so these new tests will truly be lifesavers, and they should end up being cost savers too, because we can then, move away from having to do a separate test for everything. So that is a really great innovation, and it's being done right here in Arizona, and Arizonans are building it, creating it, discovered it, are developing it, and are going to be delivering it. And that's the goal.
And Joan, if I could add, I'd just like to
Yes,
emphasize the importance of the TRIF funding, not only to expand research and discovery, but that private investment that you're talking about, that follow the lead of that type of investment in our state in these technologies. So the TRIF funding, I believe, is really, really important, and it's something that we got right and that we need to make sure that we continue, because it will drive that private investment.
absolutely. Now let's talk about private investment, because this is the area where, quite frankly, we have a problem. So private investment, what you see there is just under $1.7 billion has been invested in Arizona life science companies over the last 20 years. And this is based on data that comes out of PitchBook and is reviewed by Techonomy Partners. Colorado generates that kind of investment every year, not over 2 decades. And 20 years ago, when we were really starting to focus on the biosciences, so were they. So as we look at how we look at the inputs that create the outputs that make the impact, that is why we're really focusing on development as the area that will bring Arizona into the top 10 by 2033. So the first way to do that is in partnership. So as I've said before, nobody can do it alone, especially Little AZ Bio. But Little AZ Bio has some of the most amazing resources in the state because we have a board of directors of 35 leaders who together bring expertise in every single facet of our life science industry. We have supporters, sponsors that help us provide programs and events. And we have philanthropic partners that will work with us to create new things. So in 2019, AZ Bio got a grant from the Economic Development Administration of the U.S. Department of Commerce to create a new seed fund structure and growth engine in Arizona. Being a 501c6, AZ Bio has some limitations on what it can do. We needed a nonprofit partner who would work with us to build this program. And that partner is the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation. So AZ Bio worked with OTEF for short to create AZAdvances. AZAdvances operates under OTEF. So that allows us to take donations from the community, donations from philanthropy organizations, apply for government grants and other things that AZ Bio alone might not have been able to do. More importantly, the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation is an Arizona-based nonprofit that has been working in Arizona to help entrepreneurs since 2005. So they've been working on these types of programs almost as long as AZ Bio has. And so they were a great partner. So what do we have inside of AZAdvances today, and where do we want to go from here? So the first thing we have is the AZAdvances talent program. Because if we're going to double or grow our workforce to the level that it needs to be at, we have to have a whole pipeline of people that are ready to step into those companies. And so the AZAdvances talent program actually does several things. It hosts the Student Discovery Zone at the AZ Bio Awards, which many of you have participated in, and I hope I'll see many of you at this coming next Wednesday. Did you know that over 1,400 students have now gone through that program? And some of them, because it's been going on since 2011, some of those students are now working at the FDA, they're leading companies, they're participating in our local companies, they've gone on to become professors. It's an amazing program, and that is part of AZAdvances now. In addition to that, we have the opportunity for those same students to compete in that poster session for scholarships. And if you want to really be amazed, go to the AZ Bio Awards and talk to some of these students. They are so smart, and they're our future, because long after I'm out of the industry, they're going to keep going. And so it's so important that we support them. The last thing that we looked at was internships. And I want to do a shout out to all of the organizations that are helping with internships. The Flynn Foundation, Helios Foundation, TGen, the universities, they are all doing great work to create learning opportunities for our students. Our major corporations also have internship programs, and they're doing their part to create opportunities for our students. Unfortunately, even with everybody working together, we don't have enough internship slots for our students, especially working inside of companies. Working at a university in a university lab is a wonderful experience for a student. Working in a hospital lab is a wonderful experience for a student. The challenge is it doesn't have enough diversity of types of opportunities that a student can learn if they're working inside of a small business where everything is happening in a small team and they can get that exposure. Our small businesses, I have a waiting list of small businesses that would love to have interns. The challenge is that it costs, just hard costs, $5,000 to provide one internship. So the way we provide internships today is AZAdvances and AZBio work together to raise the funds, and every time we get $5,000, we do another internship. But that's too slow. And so we continue to talk with grant funders. We're actually hosting Ponticura, an event at the Arizona Science Center during Bioscience Week, specifically to raise funds for student internships next year. Because the ratio of students that are looking for internships to what we have available right now in Arizona is 8-1. That means for every intern that gets an opportunity, there's 7 that don't. We need to fix that. And so the AZAdvances talent program is specifically focused on doing that. And if you go after this program to azadvances.org, under programs, you can click on AZAdvances Talent and learn about the amazing programs that are being done to develop our workforce. The second focus of AZAdvances is developing our entrepreneurs. Again, we have terrific programs around the state that are focused on individual communities. The Flynn Bioscience Entrepreneurship Program, the I-Corps program that is focused on university entrepreneurs, the Arizona Commerce Authority Venture Ready programs are all great programs. But for the most part, they are not specifically focused on taking an entrepreneur through the steps that are necessary to go from idea to development and into full delivery. That takes a much larger community. And that's where AZAdvances draws on the strength of AZBio and its very, very strong base of over 280 companies with executives in every facet of the industry to tap into those resources. And so we partner with AZAdvances to help the companies that go into those programs. AZBio Peers is an example of how AZBio and AZAdvances can work together to continue to promote and develop our entrepreneurial community. And then there's the big problem, and that's investment. So here's the challenge. We will not grow our venture capital numbers unless we grow our seed capital numbers. So seed capital is that early stage, very high risk investment that goes into a company that has an idea. It's designed so that they are able to do the proof of concept, to work on the market analysis, to do the early tests, to see if this might have legs. Because if it doesn't, they need to be able to fail fast and try again. Otherwise, they don't have enough money. They bump along the bottom until their IP gets too old, and then nobody wants to invest in them. Now, we have some amazing angel groups here in Arizona. Desert Angels, ATI, and others are committed to supporting our early stage companies. But I can tell you, as someone who has been an angel investor since 1987, yes, I am that old. Angel investors worked really hard for that money. And they are not going to place the riskiest bets for the simple reason that they have so many broader opportunities that are further along that they can invest in. So if there is not engines that will invest into these early stage companies and provide, sometimes it's $30,000, sometimes it's $100,000 that's needed, sometimes it's $500,000 that's needed, depending on the type of technology that's being developed to get them to the actual milestone that makes them investable. Then that angel money comes in, and that makes them, and that is where they work on the next group of milestones that makes them investable for venture capitalists. And then the venture capitalist money is used to work on the next group of milestones that either grows them into a going concern or leads to an exit. And those exits can be millions to billions of dollars. But the reality is that at the earliest stage, 1 in 10 are going to fail. Of the 1 in 10 that made it through to the next stage, again, 1 in 10 are going to fail. And to the next stage, 1 in 10 are going to fail. And so what we start to see is as you move along the journey, the closer you get to that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the harder it is to get there. And so it's critically important that we're providing the talent, the guidance, and the early stage funding to do that. Now, AZAdvances, as it was working under its EDA grant, did raise a little bit of money for mission-related investments. And at the AZAdvances Innovation Showcase on Thursday of Bioscience Week, so just less than 10 days from now, we will be announcing the first 3 companies that have been invested as mission-related investments. It's going to help those 3 companies. It's not going to make the impact that we need, which means that we have to get creative on new ways to put more funding into the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation for the AZAdvances initiative so that we can escalate things faster. And so those 3 programs, developing our workforce, supporting our entrepreneurs, and providing that early stage high risk capital is how we will get there. Russ, anything you'd like to add?
No, I just think it's all critically important because one thing builds off the next one. And again, to your point, we are blessed to have a lot of really good programs across the state, but our focus obviously on our life science industry, specifically for our mission here, is just critically important if we do want to grow and get. And if you look at, again, just the numbers that Joan has shared over, the last little bit, we are getting there. We just want to get there faster.
We need to get there faster because everybody else is running in the same race. And it is a race for talent. It is a race for innovation, and it is a race for funding. So we need to up our game. So one of the challenges is that Russ and I did some extensive analysis as we went through the EDA grant funding process on how much do we really need to drive that forward, to provide the funding for the 3 programs that we were just talking about. And it's about $10 million a year. And that is to provide the internships for students, especially students from diverse populations that don't always get the same opportunities as others. When my kids were growing up, if they needed to have an unpaid internship, as their mother, I could say, go for it, because I had the ability to pay for their education. But that is not true for the majority of our students. And so if there's not a paid internship, they're going to be working at McDonald's. And they're not going to get the education and the experience that they need to help them move further along their career path. So $10 million a year, and everybody laughs and says, well, that's nice. But how do we do that? We needed a partner. And as you saw on the earlier slide, the state of Arizona has been an amazing partner for over 20 years as we've developed this sector. 25 years ago, it was an Arizona governor who established the bioscience cluster. 20 years ago, Governor Jane D. Hall created Prop 301 that then moved us forward through TRIF, right? The Technology Research Initiative Fund. When we look at Governor Brewer and Governor Ducey, both of them have made major investments relative to the life sciences and building up our university infrastructure. Governor Napolitano was critical in the passage of key R&D tax credit and angel tax credit legislation, which has had a huge impact on our life science industry. And now, as we look at our current governor, Governor Hobbs has, for the first time, expanded Arizona's Cs. So if you ever look at our state seal, there are 5 economic drivers that have been on the state seal, the seal of the state of Arizona, since its statehood was created. So what are they, right? We all know cotton, copper, climate, cattle. And so as we, go across that, she has added 2 more Cs for the first time in over 100 years. That's chips, which, by the way, semiconductor technology plays a big part in medtech innovation, and care, creating the health innovations that are discovered, developed, and delivered to the people of Arizona. So we now have 2 new Cs, chips and care. But how can we do that? And so we looked at using a 3-year best practices study, looking all over the world, talking to leading innovation centers. And we determined that if this really is going to change Arizona forever, then the funding has to be forever. And so we went to speak with Senator Gowan, who at the time was head of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and provided him with all of the data and explained the challenge that we were facing. And the idea of creating a permanent endowment managed by the state treasurer that, as it grows, could fund 3 specific things in Arizona forever. Health innovation being driven by workforce development, supporting our entrepreneurs, and mission-related investment. So the state cannot do mission-related investment. Okay, there's something called the gift clause. It does not allow that. But the state can support nonprofits who are doing programs for economic development. And so there was an open RFP for nonprofits after this bill passed to apply to be the state's partner for the Arizona Health Innovation Trust Fund. And AZAdvances, through the Opportunity Through our Entrepreneurship Foundation, was selected as that partner. Now, here's the hard part with endowments. Endowments have to mature for 5 years, which means that the money that they put in 2023 won't start providing support for these programs until 2028. And then as more money goes in, hopefully as it's appropriated from the state or it comes from federal funds or from philanthropy, that combination of public and private money will continue to grow. When it reaches our target of $200 million, yes, I said $200 million, then it will start generating at $8 million a year. And then we can work with the community, with funders, with grants, and other things to get us to that other $2 million a year. So as we continue to grow, we need to continue to focus not just on what we need today, but that path forward for the future that will benefit the people of Arizona. Russ, anything you'd like to add?
It just these things take time. They're complicated. We've looked at many other models, other groups as well, throughout this process. And this, I believe, really does establish an evergreen fund long term. All those interns that we're trying to place and those young people, this is funding for their companies, for their research out in the future. And, we have all these patients who need this. Again, that's why we want to push faster and do this now. And by starting now and putting this in place and under a lot of work that Joan has done here in her leadership, we believe this is a really strong path forward.
Thanks, Russ. Down at the bottom, you see the Arizona pin that all of our AZBio board members and partners, as we're working on this initiative, have. And we're going to invite everyone, over 500 people at the AZBio Awards, over 1,000 people participating during Bioscience Week, to pick up the pin and become part of the solution to build a better, stronger life science and health innovation sector in Arizona. Because when we do, we will have healthier people. We will have a healthier economy, and we will have a brighter future. So as we continue to move forward, we're asking all of you to be part of this, whether it's helping with donations, whether it is participating in events, whether it is participating in programs or providing homes for interns. Okay. Together, we can and will double the economic impact for Arizona's life science sector in the next decade if we all work together.